Hello. Running a bit late. There we go. How are you all doing? Good, bad, medium. He's late by a minute, it seems. Very true. Well, I wasn't. I was here, you know. I'm always here. It's not like I'm somewhere else. But yeah, it just wouldn't load for some reason. Anyway. By the way, there's a members-only Discord server. There is. It's in the community post. It's also linked if you become a member. And you get a little thing with it on it. Thank you, Antonio, for pointing that out. If you become a member, a bit more direct contact with me, I would say. We've had a good little chat in there. Hello, Goosebug. Hello, Ethan. Hello, Sahas. Lofi's in there. Simon. Hello. Tom's. Money. Magic. Yo-Yo from Australia. Awesome. Hello, not applicable. Thank you for saying my full name. Am I British? Yes. Hello, Brody. How's it going? Lofi has got the silver plaque now. Ooh. I didn't realise you had the silver one. Fair enough. Antonio with the purple, of course. How are we all feeling? How are we all doing? Okay, shall we get into it? Shall we talk Monza? Did a little bit of qualifying analysis that we can get into. I am just going to get a couple of extra little bits set up, though, if anyone's got any questions, bits and pieces. I was just watching the Formula 3 because I missed it this morning. Absolutely ridiculous. Should I spoil it? I don't know if I want to spoil because it was the Formula 3 finale today. So if you have been following Formula 3, I don't want to ruin it for you just in case you didn't see it. But very, very entertaining. Went all the way down to the wire. Right. If you've been following Formula 3, you know that the championship was going all the way down to the Monza race today. And it was tight. It was very tight indeed. Literally went down to... Well, again, I don't want to spoil it, but it went right down to the wire. There was swapping of championship positions all the way to the end. And it was very, very entertaining. So if you haven't followed Formula 3 this season, even just watch the final Formula 3 race. I won't spoil it here. I might spoil it later on in the post-race pod, just because we'll have a little chat about it in a bit more detail. Let me also get my live stream for myself going. There you go. It was insane from H. That's all you need to know. It was absolutely ridiculous. I was on the edge of my stool. I was on the edge of my stool. F2 was great as well. Yeah, that's very true. I hate the Formula 2, the fact that there's now a huge wait. Because obviously, the championship is still pretty much up for grabs. Like, well, if today was anything to go by, definitely up for grabs. But why didn't I stream the practice and quali sessions? I did stream quali. I unfortunately often don't get the chance to stream the practice as well because I do have a job that I have to kind of do. You know what I mean? Sure, most of you have jobs. Most of you have to do them. Or not. You know, you're in school. Again, it kind of takes up that time, doesn't it? Unfortunately, I don't have the full-time scope to be able to just watch Formula 1 without earning a living. Like the stream? Indeed. Definitely like the stream. Hello, Kim. How you doing? Who's my favorite driver? I'm a McLaren fan. Am I wearing... Oh, no, I'm wearing a Tomo t-shirt today. Tomo t-shirt today rather than a McLaren t-shirt. But Lando or Oscar... Either of those guys winning would be absolutely amazing. I also really like Yuki Tsunoda. I really like Pierre Gasly. I like Carlos Sainz. I think a lot of the drivers on the Formula 1 grid are very likable people. You know what I mean? There's a few that I'm not massive fans of. F4 race in my home city for the first time. That's pretty cool. That is very cool indeed. A 9th grader. You're getting close to getting a job. So one day you'll have a full-time job and you'll want to watch as much Formula 1 as you can. But... it will disappear from underneath you. Have to go to that full-time job as we see the cars lining up on the grid then. Should we look at qualifying and generally break down a few kind of qualifying misnomers that I've heard people talking through? So this was Lando Norris versus George Russell. The reason I've gone for George Russell is because it's kind of the closest competitor to the McLarens. Obviously, Oscar and Lando starting 1-2. I thought it was quite interesting that actually the McLaren car was slower than the Mercedes up until turn 4-5. Through the first sector, I feel like there's opportunity to get at Lando Norris. So he needs a really good start. They haven't come very often in that McLaren car, but Lando Norris needs a good start. Feel like he could be under threat. Not necessarily down to turn 1, turn 2, although it is a very long straight down to turn 1, but definitely down to turn 4, turn 5 if he is not careful, Lando Norris today. So thought I'd point that out because George Russell's lap time was quicker through that first sector, and the Ferrari's super quick through that first sector as well, that we'll get into in a moment. The actual kind of bit where Lando Norris absolutely dominated qualifying and was able to pick up his pole position was after turn 5, getting away from turn 5 through turn 6, turn 7. Those kind of high-speed right-handers that we have through turn 7. Through turn 6 and through turn 7. And then the run down towards turn 8. Just felt like everyone was struggling with turn 7 a little bit. You know, we saw Capito go off there into the gravel. We saw Kevin Magnussen in free practice even put his Haas car into the barriers at turn 7. It feels like turn 7 is very, very tricky for those cars that have set themselves up for the straight line speed of Monza, right? Turn 7 is the most challenging corner for the cars this weekend. But Lando Norris, it was the one corner that he absolutely nailed in comparison to George Russell and just made up so much time through turn 7. As you can see, that's where he manages to get that time back on George Russell through turn 6, turn 7. That's where the McLaren then gains out of turn 7 towards turn 8. You can see as where, again, Lando Norris is able to get out of turn 7 that little bit better through turn 7, get the traction down in that McLaren car, and get through to turn 8 quicker than George Russell. And that's where George Russell lost his temp. Like you can see, between turn 7 and turn 8, just the run that the McLaren was able to have between turn 7 and turn 8 is where George Russell actually went from quite far ahead of the McLaren car to actually being just behind it. Did also lose quite a chunk of time, you could argue, here between turn 5. Again, that's that. Out of turn 5, through turn 6, through turn 7, down towards turn 8. That is where Lando Norris absolutely seems to have the better of it. So if Lando Norris can get through the first sector and get through to the second sector, not under pressure, so if he can get to the end of that first sector there, he should have a great run through turn 6, turn 7, like we can see here. And that's where Lando Norris can really make up the time here today. Obviously, getting a good run out of turn 7 puts you in an amazing spot down towards turn 8. George Russell a little bit quicker through the high-speed turn 9, turn 10, little left-right that you have. But generally speaking, Lando Norris quicker. Again, George Russell quicker on the straights. The Mercedes car quicker on the straights. So George Russell is going to be able to put those cars in front of him under pressure down towards those braking zones. But if Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri can get away in that first stint maybe, or even in the first couple of laps, they can make the fact that they are quicker through that second sector count and therefore get themselves out of position. Also, thought it was interesting that Lando Norris quicker out of turn 11. So the McLaren car getting a bit better at getting out of those corners, getting up to top speed, but doesn't have the top speed advantage of the likes of Mercedes and Ferrari in front of them as well. So that'll be interesting. It's a little battle. It's not done and dusted for Lando Norris at all, looking at the qualifying times and looking at where each car was a little bit better. I did think we'd touch upon Max Verstappen quickly. Truly in the chat saying Max won't win. Max can win is peak Delulu as well from Obama's last name. And of course, it's Max Verstappen. I don't think you can ever fully count him out 1000% because he is a 3-time world champion. But that Red Bull car this weekend just does not seem to stick for him. And again, it's not the entire lap, to be honest with you. Look here again, down towards turn 8, Max Verstappen almost comparable to Lando Norris through the first and second sectors. You can see actually a little bit ahead through turn 1, but then loses it on the exit of turn 1, turn 2. A little bit behind, but then actually gains on Lando Norris. You know, I've just said that Lando was so good through turn 6 and turn 7. Max Verstappen pretty much matches him through that turn 6, turn 7. Not too bad at all from the Red Bull car. It's just the final sector, and Max Verstappen was on the radio complaining about the fact that this Red Bull car just doesn't seem to want to turn. And that's what he ended up having. Got to turn 8, couldn't get it through turn 8, then had to compromise on turn 9, turn 10. That whole chicane that you've got there, it's really high speed, as you can see by the fact that they don't slow down very much through that chicane, just kind of come off the accelerator rather than braking as such through that turn 8, 9, 10. But you can see that's where Max Verstappen then lost so much of his time. Like through turns 8, 9, 10. This is T9 and 10. That's where Max Verstappen first really fell away from Lando Norris's lap time. So McLaren good through the corners, as I just said, against the Mercedes and the Ferrari cars, but the Red Bull is able to match the McLaren through that middle sector, through the twistier part of the lap. It's the high-speed corners that are now a real problem for that Red Bull car. Turn 9, turn 10 goes wrong, then goes into turn 11, and Max Verstappen is so much slower than Lando Norris through turn 11. Look at how further down this line goes in terms of speed, carrying that speed through turn 11. Max Verstappen on the brakes earlier than Lando Norris, not able to carry anywhere near as much speed. Actually went really wide through turn 11 as well, and that cost Max Verstappen even more time. And that is two tiny little errors. Like, we're talking about very, very fine margins. And I think Andrea Stella and Toto Wolff kind of touched upon it post-qualifying yesterday. A tenth of a second is the difference between pole position and like 6th place. Like, it's very, very difficult to get right in and amongst that. And it is so tight between McLaren, Mercedes, Ferrari, and Red Bull. All four of them right in the mix. But this is the difference maker. This is where the Red Bull fell away. Through turn 8, out towards turn 11, getting through turn 11. And the biggest fall for me is through turn 11. That's where you'd expect the Red Bull to be planted. You'd expect the Red Bull to have the downforce to carry enough speed through turn 11. But I don't know whether Max Verstappen just didn't have the tyres in the right window, or he'd pushed the tyres too hard all the way up to the final sector. And therefore, when he got to the final sector, they'd fallen off a cliff a little bit. But Max Verstappen, there is where he fell. And that is where Lando Norris was able to pinch so much time in comparison to the Red Bull. And that's also where the Red Bull fell away from the Ferraris, the Mercedes, and why Max Verstappen is starting in 7th place. Because it all fell away in that final sector for him. Whilst we're kind of on that touching point, I did just want to look at the Ferrari versus the Mercedes. Charles Leclerc was saying that he was disappointed not to be in front of George Russell, but actually it was a really tight battle between the two. And I know that I've just said Lando Norris was much quicker through the corners, through kind of 5, 6, 7 towards 8. That's where Lando Norris kind of got it. That's also where George Russell was able to kind of just about keep himself into touching distance with the Ferraris as well. So that's where that middle sector really does come into its fore. You can see the Ferrari just so much quicker through all of the straight line bits. And I think that's where, if you're Mercedes with George Russell, you're a little bit worried. The top end speed of this Ferrari car is that little bit better. And I'm expecting with DRS, especially if the McLarens disappear up the road, we could see George Russell under a lot of pressure from Charles Leclerc on the straights, down towards turn 1, turn 2, down towards turn 4, turn 5, where that Ferrari just has that top line speed advantage, can use the DRS, and properly gets in front of that Mercedes car. That's going to be the battle I'm really interested in seeing, and just kind of show you that this is what I mean, where the Ferrari is just so much quicker in a straight line. Like, coming towards the end of any of those straights, the Ferrari is the one with the top line speed advantage. The Mercedes able to make up a little bit of time in terms of qualifying through those corners and getting better traction out of the corners. You can see George Russell is better out of turn 2, out of turn 5, out of turn 10. But the Ferrari then gains back on it. And you can see the margin is very small, where the Mercedes has that advantage out of the corner. But then, as soon as the Ferrari's in a straight line, as soon as the Ferrari's able to get the power down, the Ferrari does have that ability to just have a better top line speed. So It's going to be a really tight battle. McLaren, Mercedes, Ferrari, even though the McLarens managed to dominate qualifying overall, I don't think it's done and dusted at all. I think this could be a complete madness between those three teams, especially George Russell and Charles Leclerc kind of fighting, trying to get past Oscar Piastri, and if they can, catch up to Lando Norris as well. It should be really, really entertaining. Got to love Formula One tempo. You are right, Mr. Pulse. I absolutely love F1 tempo. I've tried to get in touch with them a couple of times, but never heard anything back. Might try again, because in recent weeks started using it even more so. Just seen the weather update saying rain potential is increasing due to a thunderstorm. Of course, it is Monza. It is Italy. There's always that possibility. There are some clouds hanging in the distance, but whether or not they will come to fruition, we'll have to wait and see. Final thing I wanted to touch upon, if we've got time, 3 minutes until 10:02. Okay. Final thing I wanted to touch upon was why Lewis Hamilton was so disappointed in his qualifying lap. You know, P6, but he said he thought he should have been right up there for pole position. And I thought he was going to be right up there for pole position. Honestly, I thought looking at it, Lewis Hamilton was in a really, really solid window. You look back to Belgium, which is kind of the most recent similar track to Monza, and Hamilton was right up there. But actually, it was Hamilton through turn 1, turn 2, where he lost all of that time. You can just see through turn 1, turn 2. Doesn't look like too much on the speed graph, but you can see in terms of the delta, Lewis Hamilton loses nearly 2 tenths there, or just about 2 tenths there. Manages to get out of turn 2 with a kind of just under 2-tenth deficit to George Russell, his teammate. But that's where I think the lap was lost from Lewis Hamilton. And it's so frustrating. Like, if you've ever played the Formula One game or anything along those lines, you know that you're building up, right? You're doing your out lap, you're doing your preparation, you're getting those tires warmed, you're ready and raring to go. And then when you mess up on the first corner, it is so frustrating because you have to wait an entire lap to do it all over again. Obviously, in Formula One, you only get one shot. You only get one real bite at the cherry with these proper high-end Formula One cars at their peak. So turn 1, turn 2, that's where Lewis Hamilton messed up. And that's why he was so frustrated, because he messed up so early in the lap. And you can see, actually, through the middle sector, again, George Russell was not great out of turn 5, through turn 6, turn 7, down towards turn 8. Lewis Hamilton actually gets back to matching his teammate through the middle sector. You can see George Russell kind of does the opposite. George Russell gets out of turn 2 better, but then Lewis Hamilton gains that back at turn 4, turn 5. So it was really, really tight between the two Mercedes cars. Down towards turn 8, they're almost identical with one another. Through turn 9, turn 10, almost identical with one another again. So it felt like, oh my God, Lewis Hamilton's actually grabbed those 2 tenths back. Imagine what he'd have been able to do had he not lost those 2 tenths. But then, unfortunately, Lewis Hamilton, by the end, because he's used that little bit more rubber through that middle sector, because he's maybe just got those tyres outside of that window, just messes up again slightly through turn 11, has to dip off the speed in comparison to George Russell's, able to get the speed down that little bit better, that little bit quicker, smoother through turn 11. And that's where Lewis Hamilton lost out on that final, what was it? Not even a tenth of a second, half a tenth of a second through turn 11. And I know I'm being very critical. These are incredibly fine margins, the tiniest of margins in terms of where these drivers are losing time. But they are the tiny margins that do make a difference in Formula One. So that's quick qualifying analysis from myself. Did want to also point out Kimi Antonelli is confirmed. We talked about it in way more detail before qualifying yesterday. So you can always have a little look at that if you want to see my thoughts and feelings. That leaves us with 2 drivers left to find out, RB and Sauber. I do enjoy the fact that we were talking about, though, Antonelli, rookie, Doohan, rookie, Behrman, rookie. Where's the other one? I feel like there's another rookie on him. No, I'm completely wrong. I know we were talking about the fact that Lawson could go in, sorry. If Lawson goes into that RB seat, 4 rookies, 8 driver changes possibly looking to come throughout next season, which is making for, 1, a very, very entertaining driver market this season, but 2, could make for an insanely entertaining 2025 season, especially when you look at the fact that Mercedes have had an uptick this season. Ferrari have brought an upgrade to Monza and it seems to work. So you're looking at Hamilton, what can he do in the new look Ferrari? Antonelli, what can he do now in a new look Mercedes? Two big changes right at the top in those teams that really matter. Of course, there's a question mark around Sergio Perez as well. So we could see three changes, inside of that big 8 at the top of the standings. Obviously, Aston Martin staying where they are. Question mark about Fernando Alonso for 2026. A lot of people saying he might be kind of a bit too frustrated with that Aston Martin. Obviously, after the positive start to 2023, it's kind of fallen away in 2024. 2025 is not looking that great either. Does he believe in the Aston Martin project going into 2026? We'll have to wait and see. Jack Doohan's so exciting, isn't it? This driver lineup here, Carlos Sainz and Alex Albon, so exciting to see these two battle it out. I feel like this is one of the best driver lineups. You know, you look at the driver lineups here, I feel like Antonelli is such an unknown at this point. You can't really say Mercedes definitely have the best driver lineup anymore. Does Ferrari have the best driver lineup? Leclerc and Hamilton, I would say that is very, very strong. You could also say the McLaren are pretty equal with Ferrari in terms of that. But Albon and Sainz, as driver lineups go, is definitely one of the top driver lineups that we've got on the grid now. And that could be so fun to watch next season. And of course, how Ollie Behrman does against Esteban Ocon. Both of them swapping teams and seeing what they can do. Behrman in his rookie season. What was the final thing I had? I think that was all. Lovely. Done our analytics. We're all set up. Let's have a little look at the standings as we go into qualifying. Who is where? No big changes, or no changes at all, in terms of where they were in terms of qualifying yesterday. We're going to start with Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri at the front of the pack in the McLaren cars. Pole position once again for Lando Norris, but he hasn't been very good at holding on to them. Will it be Oscar Piastri that gains on him, or will George Russell, who starts in 3rd place, get the jump? Charles Leclerc starts in 4th place in his Ferrari in front of the Tifosi. Carlos Sainz, his final Monza Grand Prix in a Ferrari. He'll want to make something of it. You know, Carlos Sainz last year in 2023 was so quick in that Ferrari car. Really impressed with Carlos Sainz last time around in Monza. Can he do it again this year? Can he pull out something special from 5th place? Lewis Hamilton in 6th, as we just touched upon. A little bit of a poor first sector, put him down on where he wanted to be. Max Verstappen, also that final sector was where he fell apart and dropped down into 7th. And Sergio Perez kind of making that top 8 what you expect it to be. It was very much an expected top 8. None of those big names dropping out in Q2 or Q3. Q1 or Q2. Yesterday, Alex Albon starts best of the rest in 9th place. And if Williams can pick up another couple of points, another 9th place finish for Alex Albon, it'll be the 3rd time he finished in 9th place. But he will absolutely take that in the new look Williams car. Of course, all eyes on his teammate a little bit further down the grid as well. Nico Hülkenberg is the man where I expect to see him. You know, you always expect Nico Hülkenberg, well, to be 11th more often than not. Nico Hülkenberg has finished 11th so many times this season, but he is starting in 10th place and hopefully will pick up another point for Haas if he manages to stay there. Fernando Alonso being his closest competitor to the point scoring places in 11th, with Daniel Ricciardo in his RB in 12th place. And I really like that little battle as well. You've got a Williams, a Haas, an Aston Martin, and an RB. 4 drivers in 4 slots. 2 point slots available to those 4. And I think that could be really interesting. Like, who decides to pit when, who goes for what strategy. That is going to be well worth watching in the midfield today. Then just outside of that, Kevin Magnussen starting in 13th. He was a little bit frustrated, made a little error in free practice 3. Obviously had to switch out the front wing of that Haas and therefore maybe just didn't quite have the feeling that he wanted through turn 6 and turn 7. Pierre Gasly starts alongside him in 14th place, just ahead of Esteban Ocon in 15th. They were the 5 drivers to drop out of Q2. Fernando Alonso, Daniel Ricciardo, Kevin Magnussen, Gasly, and Ocon. Then we get into the drivers that dropped out in Q1, the final 5 at the back of the grid. Yuki Tsunoda starts alongside Esteban Ocon in 16th place. The penultimate row of the grid is Lance Stroll's Aston Martin, and of course Colapinto in his Formula One debut for Williams, starting 18th place. But that Williams car looking good in a straight line. We'll see what Colapinto can do from there. Points on debut would be absolutely ridiculous. I'm not going to put that kind of pressure on him, but I would like to see him move up. Maybe put Tsunoda, Ocon, Gasly under a little bit of pressure. And then finally, right at the back of the pack, the new look Stake Sauber car wasn't good enough to get it off the bottom of the timing sheets. Valtteri Bottas, 19th place. Zhou Guanyu in 20th spot is how we are rolling. Stroll to make the most overtakes today. I mean, you'd hope so from 17th place. Can't really start much further back, especially considering how far off the Stake Sauber cars have been in recent weekends. What is Sauber even doing? Never seen them above 15th place yet. They are set up a little bit better for the race, I would say, but how much better? We'll kind of have to wait and see. Not saying that it's going to be an absolutely vintage weekend from Stake Sauber and they're going to manage to nab a point or anything like that. I was kind of half positive about Valtteri Bottas maybe picking up a point this weekend, kind of just looking at the free practice sessions and how the Stake Sauber changed its entire package. Like they've effectively brought a Monza package, and then didn't quite go that way, did it? Ended up 19th place anyway. Am I going to show the live stream of the race? No. In a word, no. That is incredibly illegal, and also Sky Sports would be at my door before I'd even know where to look. Challenge to win the World Drivers' Championship. Lando Norris needs to average 8 points on Max Verstappen every weekend. Exactly. He needs to average 8 points. But that does mean you need a few weekends where you get a lot more than 8 points. Because there are going to be weekends where Max Verstappen does finish ahead of Lando Norris. Like, it's all well and good saying, you know, he just needs to get 8 points. But averaging 8 points and getting 8 points are very different. Averaging 8 points is what Lando Norris did last weekend, right? He won. He was 7 points ahead of Verstappen in terms of the points last weekend in Zandvoort, then got the bonus point for the fastest lap, which made it 8. But he needs a weekend like this one, where he can maybe pick up sort of 16, 17 more points than Max Verstappen, and that really closes the gap. And that makes that averaging of 8 a lot easier. A lot easier, because there are, as I say, going to be weekends where Max Verstappen does still finish ahead of Lando Norris. That is just the way it is going to be. Race control, the risk of rain for the Formula One race is now at 40%. Not quite a 50-50, not quite in the way that sort of if you're a Max Verstappen fan, you'd want it to be. I think a little bit of rain would actually help out the Red Bull team here quite a lot, because it just mixes up the pack a touch. But I don't know. It's going to be so interesting to see how this title battle sort of pans out, doesn't it? It's going to be really tough for Lando Norris. Lando Norris has to be effectively faultless throughout this second half of the season. 10 races where he needs to absolutely nail every single one of them. Lewis Hamilton is going to win. I'd actually really like to see Lewis Hamilton win in Monza, because it builds so much hype for that Ferrari move, doesn't it? You know, he's not quite a Ferrari driver yet, but he's soon to be a Ferrari driver. So if Lewis Hamilton did get the win today, it does give the Ferrari fans a little bit to shout about. But starting from 6th place, if Hamilton was starting where Russell was, well, obviously, if Hamilton was starting where Russell was, he'd have a much better opportunity at doing it. But getting past the Ferraris, I think, is just going to be a little bit harder than he's expecting it to be. He's going to have to try and get the run at the Ferraris very early on, in my opinion. Where can I watch the F1? Depends on what what continent you're on, is what I was trying to find the words for. Shall we get into it then? Shall we have a little look at the cars going around on the first lap? Here we go. Oh, actually, mine's a little bit delayed. Let me see if I can lower the delay on that just a touch. Ooh, hard tyres for Verstappen and Perez. Verstappen and Perez going against the grain a little bit there, deciding to actually go onto those tyres earlier in the race, and then maybe use the mediums towards the end. That'd be very interesting. Apologies, this is going to freeze for a second whilst I just sort out some bits and pieces. Because it was a little bit too delayed in comparison to my live stream. Although, it does have to be said, Monza does throw up some weird winners, doesn't it? Does throw up some weird winners. McLaren on top step of the podium once again. Daniel Ricciardo did it in 2021. Pierre Gasly did it in 2020, remember? Charles Leclerc in 2019. So there's been a few different ones. He didn't bottle turn one. I mean, turn one hasn't happened yet. This is the formation lap. You'd hope that he hadn't bottled turn one. Because he's still got to start on pole position. Go on then. Get your final predictions in. I threw a poll up earlier on today. A lot of people backing Lando Norris to turn pole into victory once again. A lot of Lewis Hamilton, though, in the chat. Positivity around Lewis. Red Bull trying to pull a one-stopper? Possibly. I think Red Bull are, going for something ridiculously different by the looks of things. Starting on the hard compound tyre is always a gamble because it's so hard to keep that hard compound tyre in the right window, especially when you are really heavy on fuel. And also, it's really hard to get the hard compound tyre off the start line in the way that you want it to be, right? Oh, I've gone too far the other way, haven't I? Gone too far the other way. Right, let's reset this once more. And then, even if it's wrong, I'm just going to leave it. Russell will lead. Formation lap is indeed nearly over. Getting the cars lining up on the grid. The final cars to come around the corner. The Stake Saubers just finding their slot at the back of the pack. Joe Guan Yu going very, very slowly, actually. Interesting that they are going that slow through the final corner. Leaving everybody waiting that little bit longer. This back markers were taking so long to take their positions there. But the 5 red lights are finally lighting up. 3, 4, 5. And we are underway in Monza. It's a really long run down towards turn 1. A much better start from the McLarens, though. Although George Russell getting up alongside Oscar Piastri. Oscar Piastri peels off. And the McLarens... Oh, and George Russell onto the grass. And George Russell has to go down the escape road. And actually, George Russell is going to come out just behind Charles Leclerc. He's going to lose the position to Carlos Sainz as well. Yes. And Lewis Hamilton might even make it past his teammate. He does. A real mistake from George Russell there. Oscar Piastri, though, putting his teammate under pressure. And Oscar Piastri going around the outside of turn 4 takes the lead of this Grand Prix. Oscar Piastri not standing on ceremony. That's put Lando Norris under so much pressure and opened the door to Charles Leclerc. And Leclerc now takes the second spot from Lando Norris. It's been a disaster start once again from Lando Norris. He drops behind both Piastri and Leclerc. And they were just doing... It seemed like they were doing an amazing job of getting through the first couple of corners with McLarens, and now they've dropped backwards. Oh my goodness me, and a lot of dust and debris being thrown up by the back markers as well. There is a lot of changes happening, but it's Piastri who is going to run down towards turn 11 in the lead. Charles Leclerc second, Lando Norris third. Goodness gracious me. Carlos Sainz also doing a great job in the first corner. Max Verstappen up into 6th place. And Max Verstappen complaining that Lewis didn't leave a car's whiff. George Russell is falling down the order quickly. Russell now under pressure from Sergio Perez. Oh, my thing is just frozen. Apologies. I'll quickly reset that. Hopefully that'll get going again. Oscar Piastri now leads the Grand Prix down towards turn 4, 5. Charles Leclerc just behind him. Lando Norris third. Carlos Sainz fourth. Lewis Hamilton in 5th place. Has been able to gain on his teammates. George Russell has just fallen way down the order after looking like he was going to be the Mercedes car to battle with these top 4 runners. Hamilton is now the man in the mix. Lewis Hamilton in 5th place, in front of Verstappen in 6th, Russell 7th, Sergio Perez 8th. Alex Albon has done really well to hold on to 9th place in the Williams car. Nico Hülkenberg has had an absolute disaster. He's dropped from 10th down to 16th. That's promoted Fernando Alonso into the final point scoring place. Daniel Ricciardo in 11th, and now Kevin Magnussen, the nearest Haas to the points. Gasly and Ocon 13th and 14th, Tsunoda 15th. Hülkenberg, as I said, dropped down to 16th place. And Colapinto has got the run on Lance Stroll. Colapinto up to 17th. Lance Stroll down to 18th. Bottas and Zhou still at the back of the pack as we go into lap 3 of this Grand Prix. Here comes Oscar Piastri down towards turn 1. Gets through very cleanly. Charles Leclerc through turn 2. Sergio Perez on the radio. George has got a lot of damage. It's dangerous. There you go. There is the damage to George Russell's car confirmed. And he must have picked that up when he dipped his car onto the grass at turn 1 on lap 1. Charles Leclerc, though, trying to keep himself within DRS range of the car in front, being Oscar Piastri leading this race. But Leclerc is within DRS range, and this is where the top line speed of the Ferrari could play into his hands. Lando Norris in 3rd place, down from pole position. Carlos Sainz putting his old teammate under pressure. We've got a little bit of a DRS train behind. Oh no, Lando Norris, sorry, did not have DRS there behind Charles Leclerc. Lando Norris is falling away from that top 2 by the looks of things. Carlos Sainz with DRS to his old McLaren teammate in the Ferrari behind. Lewis Hamilton also DRS as well. Need a little bit of space between these cars to really open up that DRS possibility. We also know that the tyres are going to hold on to grip fairly often. I think we're looking at a good few laps before we look at drivers really putting in those lap times. No, there comes Lando Norris with the fastest lap of the Grand Prix so far. 125.1 from him. Trying to put Carlos Sainz to without touching distance. Nico Hülkenberg is going to go for a move on Yuki Tsunoda and gets that 15th place. And then Yuki Tsunoda, comes back at him. Yuki Tsunoda keeps 15th place ahead of Hülkenberg. A tete-a-tete between Tsunoda and Hülkenberg. Remember, those two on the same points in the Drivers' Championship, but a little bit further from the points this weekend. Currently running 15th and 16th place with the Japanese driver having the edge just slightly. Colapinto is actually catching up to the back of Nico Hülkenberg, keeping an eye on the Williams. Here's the replay then. And George Russell just has to get out of it. Basically goes way too deep in towards turn 1. Doesn't realize that Lando Norris is going to have to peel... that Oscar Piastri is going to have to peel away because Lando Norris is there. And George Russell, because it's 3 abreast, has to then go down that final escape road. Oscar Piastri comes across the front of George Russell. George Russell having to... Oh, and yeah, Piastri is very, very... Oh, my goodness me. Piastri just closes the door on George Russell, and then George Russell has to get out of it. Lets both of the Ferraris through at that point, and then Lewis Hamilton also down towards turn 4, gets in front of his teammate on that first lap. Whew. Oh, and then, yeah, Lando Norris under pressure from Piastri. Lando Norris almost loses the McLaren through turn 5, and that's where Charles Leclerc nabs 2nd place from him, gets into that first Lesmo ahead of the McLaren, and takes 2nd place from him. And that is where he still is now. Piastri still leading the race, has just set the fastest lap of anybody. Daniel Ricciardo, there it is. It's all the way down towards turn 8. Daniel Ricciardo goes for a move on Nico Hülkenberg, and Hülkenberg is pushed onto the grass and loses a lot of positions. Does Nico Hülkenberg just has no momentum through it. There's the damage to George Russell's front wing. Was that from collision with Oscar Piastri then? I think Piastri maybe even just a little bit too pushy on that opening lap. Did a little bit of damage to George Russell along the way. Sergio Perez complaining about that damage to George Russell's car and whether or not that is dangerous for him to be still out on the track. Norris fumbled the start. No, not so much, to be honest with you. Just Oscar Piastri getting the toe down towards turn 4. I did say, actually, I wasn't expecting it to be Piastri. I was expecting it to maybe be a Ferrari or a McLaren, a Mercedes, sorry. But I wasn't expecting it to be Piastri. Just the fact that through that first sector is where you kind of can get at the McLaren. It is where it fell down a little bit in qualifying in comparison to the rest of the field. It was the middle sector that Lando Norris absolutely dominated, and that's where he got himself onto the top step in qualifying yesterday. Here comes Nico Hülkenberg then, the Haas team deciding to just go with a slightly different scenario. Oh, and a little mistake trying to change the front wing of the Haas, and he didn't have the right pin to open and get the front wing off. Dear. New front wing for Nico Hülkenberg, and that could be pretty much the end of his race, unfortunately. Let's see then. Nico Hülkenberg again. Oh, there's the collision with Yuki Tsunoda. So Ricciardo causing a collision with Hülkenberg before. Hülkenberg then causing a collision with Tsunoda. And yeah, the Haas actually just smashes into the side of the RB. That's why Yuki Tsunoda looked to have lost that place, but Tsunoda pushed onto the grass, regained that position, and rightfully so, with Nico Hülkenberg slamming into the side. There must be big damage to Yuki Tsunoda as well, and Yuki Tsunoda's come into the pits to shuffle around some bits and pieces. Oh no, he hasn't pitted as Yuki Tsunoda. He has just dropped all the way to the back of the pack with the pace that he is having. Yeah, I think that's the damage to Yuki Tsunoda's car finally coming to fruition then. I thought he'd pitted. So far adrift. Albon in the point scoring places once again and actually getting himself a good chunk ahead of Fernando Alonso. A little bit of a DRS train behind Albon, but holding Alonso at arm's length. And Oscar Piastri being told that he needs to go to plan B. Plan B. Interesting to see what that ends up being. Father and son battling for lead. Max Verstappen on the hard compound tyre. Be interesting to see how long they go. Verstappen now 7 seconds off the lead, 5 seconds off of his closest championship competitor. Lando Norris down into 3rd place from the start of this Grand Prix. Verstappen on the radio. Max Verstappen just being told to hold position a touch. Let them push the medium tyre hard. Like, keep Hamilton under pressure, but don't want to ruin your hard compound tyres, especially while the cars are still at their heaviest towards the end of the race. And Yuki Tsunoda, yeah, finally getting the instruction to box and retire the car. I thought that was coming, to be honest with you. You look at how far Tsunoda has dropped off the back of everybody else. I know that Nico Hülkenberg is still behind, but Nico Hülkenberg pitted and had a really, really long pit stop as well. So Tsunoda, after that damage caused by the collision with Nico Hülkenberg at turn 1, is going to retire the car on lap 7 of this Grand Prix. Hülkenberg has only done 1 lap. No, 1 lap on that set of tyres. He has pitted once as Nico Hülkenberg. Had to swap out the front wing, had to change quite a few bits and pieces. Piastri and Leclerc then still our top 2. Lando Norris in the podium, scoring 3rd place. Has fallen away from this top 2. I just wonder if Lando Norris is getting himself some clean air to maybe hold on to these medium tyres a bit longer than he was expecting to. Because he has just dropped outside of DRS range of Charles Leclerc. Carlos Sainz has also done the same thing, just dropped to 1.5 seconds behind Lando Norris. Whereas the gap between Sainz and Hamilton feels a bit more... Oh, here's the penalty then. Daniel Ricciardo. Daniel Ricciardo, a 5 second penalty for forcing car 3. Sorry, car 3 is handed a 5-second penalty. I'll get the words out eventually. Handed a 5-second penalty for pushing a car off of the track. Sad for Yuki Tsunoda. Yeah, although he was starting quite far down, wasn't Yuki? So a little bit unfortunate for him. And a penalty for Nico Hülkenberg. A 10-second penalty for Nico Hülkenberg, having collided with Yuki Tsunoda. And I feel like, yeah, that was also a hard and fast penalty. 10 seconds. I mean, Yuki Tsunoda has now dropped out of the race and retired his car. So, yeah, maybe 10 seconds worth it. What is the tyre strategy here? Medium, medium, soft. Yeah, 2-stopper. There's a few guys that have held on to a fresh set of softs, to be fair, so I could see that. Charles Leclerc has just set the fastest lap of the Grand Prix and is now catching up to Oscar Piastri. Could we see a Ferrari on the top step here in Monza? He did it in 2019, did Charles Leclerc, and now going once again. I did a video as well about countries that have won the fewest Grand Prix, like the countries that have won Grand Prix, but you wouldn't expect. Obviously, Charles Leclerc is on that list, having won 6 Grand Prix for Monaco. He turns it to 7. I do have to re-script that video. So that would be a little bit frustrating, but I would also like to see a Ferrari win at Monza, so I'll let it slide this time. However, it would be beating a McLaren. Nope, I've decided again. I've flip-flopped between it. I've decided again it would be annoying for me. Daniel Ricciardo. Let's have a little look at the onboard of him. Oh, just goes too deep in towards turn 1, trying to catch the back of Fernando Alonso and get into the point scoring places. Of course, has that 5-second penalty now, does Daniel Ricciardo. I can show you in terms of the investigations that are there. Daniel Ricciardo with a penalty, Nico Hülkenberg with a penalty as well. Sergio Perez we're on board with as he's catching the back of George Russell once again. Russell still big damage to the front right corner of that Mercedes car. And Oscar Piastri realised that Charles Leclerc was closing in and has set the fastest lap of the Grand Prix. A 1:24 dead from the Australian. Puts himself out of DRS range of Charles Leclerc. But here is Sergio Perez. Is he going to make the move on Russell down towards turn 1? Yes, he is. The Mexican moves up a position and goes up into 7th spot. Of course, the top 8 now 6.5 seconds ahead of the middling pack. Daniel Ricciardo really wanting to battle this afternoon. Kevin Magnussen making a move on Ricciardo, and Ricciardo not making it easy, but does lose the position. Kevin Magnussen now moves up into 11th spot. As I said, that battle from sort of 9th place down to 12th is going to be very entertaining to see. Pierre Gasly has decided to come into the pits in his Alpines. George Russell finally getting given the box call. He is 12, nearly 13 seconds off the lead now as George Russell, of course, started in 3rd place. Oscar Piastri being asked what plan he wants to go on to. Oscar Piastri saying plan A. I would imagine that's the 1 stop from Oscar Piastri. Plan B is the 2 stop. Oh, it might be the other way around. We'll have to wait and see. Doesn't really give us too much, but plan A is the choice from Oscar Piastri at this moment in time. You're watching IRL. That is ridiculous. Yeah, Sergio Perez, definitely not back, but at least up into 7th spot. Although George Russell with damage now swaps his front wing out. Does George Russell? Daniel Ricciardo decides to pit as well. Go for it. George Russell now 16th after he comes out of the pits. Oh, it's going to be even further back, isn't he? Oh no, 16th. Bottas and Joe just made their way past. I was having a look at Pierre Gasly. I thought Gasly was going to get the jump on Russell then, which would have been absolutely insane. But a new set of hard compound tyres go on to George Russell's car. He's going to be in 16th spot, but he's going to have a lovely bit of clean air in front of him. And if the damage to George Russell's car was just to that front wing end plate, he should be able to put in some absolutely monstrous lap times now. because he's got so much clear air. Max having to drop back to help his teammate. That's nice of him. Max just holding onto his tyres. On the hard compound tyre, remember the Red Bull needs to go a lot longer than the rest in terms of strategy. Almost holding out for a safety car or a red flag as well. Could fall into Max Verstappen's favour. Never know. Especially if you've watched any of the Formula 2 or Formula 3 events this weekend. We've seen a few safety cars here and there. Could there be one in Formula 1? Could it help Max Verstappen rather than Lando Norris this time around? Of course, Miami was the turning point for McLaren where they picked up that first victory. Was with the help of the safety car. Could Max Verstappen have the favour returned again? Sauber are 14th and 15th? Yes, but they haven't stopped yet. If you look, Fernando Alonso is pitted in 15th place behind and is within 20 seconds of the two in front. So Bottas and Zhou, although running in 13th and 14th, the stake Sauber still not the car it once was. Fernando Alonso has come out in front of George Russell, and that is the amount of time that George Russell just lost changing that front wing. Fernando Alonso, of course, was running in 10th spot, you have to remember, before the pits for Russell and himself. Is now ahead of George Russell. Be very interesting. Lando Norris has just turned on the afterburners as well. Lando Norris now within DRS range. Getting closer and closer. Go on, Lando. This is the one now. Charles Leclerc is 3 seconds off Oscar Piastri. Oscar Piastri still putting in some qualifying level lap times. Lando Norris on board. Oh, a little dip into the gravel from Lando Norris. Just starting to catch that car. Dust flying. But still putting Charles Leclerc under pressure now is Lando Norris. And I did think this maybe. Lando Norris just dropping back a touch, keeping his tyres in a better window. We know that towards the end of a stint is where the McLaren car, specifically on the mediums, does come to the fore. George Russell is trying to make a move on Fernando Alonso and does make a move on Fernando Alonso down towards turn 1 as well. George Russell back in front of the Aston Martin. Lando Norris closing in once more. It was 9/10 of a second, now to within 6/10 of a second of Charles Leclerc. And Lando Norris desperately needs to clear Charles Leclerc if he's going to be battling with his teammate for the lead. And Lando Norris boxing. Box to overtake, box to overtake. Oh my goodness me. Carrying such momentum was Lando Norris. Hits into one of the advertising boards as he comes into the pits. But through nonetheless. Hard compound tyres onto that McLaren car. Wheel spins away from the pit stop. A solid stop from Lando Norris. 2.2 seconds. A really good stop indeed from Lando Norris. This is where he needs a little bit of free air. Does Lando Norris? Is he going to get out in front of Ocon? Not quite, but he probably will be able to get Ocon down towards turn 1 anyway. No, he's going to be stuck. He's going to be stuck behind Ocon at least until turn 4, you would imagine. Come on, Lando. You need to get past Ocon now. Obviously, those tyres, trying to warm them up whilst also getting past an Alpine is not necessarily what you want to do. But Lando Norris does it anyway. He's up into 8th place and ahead of Esteban Ocon. And now needs some qualifying lap times. Got a little bit of space to Alex Albon ahead. 5 seconds of road for Lando Norris to run into. And it was boxed to undertake Charles Leclerc, going for that undercut on the Ferrari. It was a last-minute call for Lando Norris. You could see the smoke coming off of the tyres from Lando Norris. He waited until literally the last moment possible to put on the brakes before coming into that pit lane. This is going to be very, very entertaining to see how it goes. Lewis Hamilton decided to come in. Charles Leclerc responds. So Charles Leclerc in the pits. Lando Norris just coming around turn 11. So let's see. Has Lando Norris been able to get that overtake done on Leclerc, even with the battle with Ocon? Charles Leclerc is out of the pits. A 2.5 second stop for the Ferrari. So lost 0.3 of a second. And there goes Lando Norris. And Lando Norris has indeed got that overtake done on Charles Leclerc. Leclerc is going to come out in front of Esteban Ocon, though. Lovely for Lando Norris. He's now ahead of Charles Leclerc. But Oscar Piastri still going strong on those medium tyres. Is Oscar Piastri going to respond? Box is the call from Piastri, apparently. Is Piastri going to come in to cover off the two drivers that were behind? Lando Norris now has to really go for it. He's closed the gap to Alex Albon by 2 seconds in that last lap. Alex Albon still running in the Williams car within the point scoring places. You think Alex Albon would have wanted to cover off maybe Fernando Alonso, but no, still going for it. Here's Oscar Piastri then round the final corner. It's usually 23 seconds for a pit stop. Lando Norris still 26 seconds off the leader as Oscar Piastri does duck into the pit lane. That's going to release Carlos Sainz, who is now going to take the lead of this Grand Prix. Remember, Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez on the harder compound tyre are still going to be running for a very long time in comparison to these medium compound runners at the beginning of this race. Lando Norris only just coming around the final corner now, and there's going to be Alex Albon between the two McLarens. Oscar Piastri is going to get out just in front of Alex Albon. That was where he needed to be, and Piastri has done it perfectly. He's now got a car between himself and his teammate. Piastri in 4th and Albon in 5th. Albon yet to have stopped. And Charles Leclerc confused on the radio. Why did we pit if we were undercut? Is the call from Charles Leclerc. Leclerc now 2 seconds off the back of Lando Norris. Charles Leclerc maybe realizing that he's not actually in the race with the McLarens today. The McLarens looking so much quicker when they're in clean air. As Piastri disappeared up the road from Charles Leclerc. Carlos Sainz now leads this Grand Prix, though. Esteban Ocon, interestingly, up into the points with Lance Stroll, but neither of those guys yet to have pitted. Lewis Hamilton is there in 10th spot. Valtteri Bottas also hasn't pitted on his hard compound tyres yet either. Russell still behind his teammate, though, by a considerable margin now. Goodness gracious me. And Lando Norris now closing into the back of Alex Albon. Needs to get this move done as quickly as can be. He was 3 seconds off the back of Piastri. That has closed to 2, but Piastri's going to have lovely clean air if Lando Norris can't get past this Williams car on the older tyres. And Albon ducks into the pits. Lando Norris. Cover for the other car. Papaya rules is what Lando Norris is told over the radio. Not 100% sure what that means, but doesn't seem like Oscar Piastri is just going to give the position to Lando Norris at this point in the Grand Prix. I mean, he didn't give it to him at the beginning of the Grand Prix when he took the lead from his teammate. Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez, now the two cars ahead of Piastri. Carlos Sainz leading the Grand Prix. Here's another penalty for Daniel Ricciardo, and it's a 10-second penalty for Daniel Ricciardo. This time for failing to serve the time penalty correctly. That is an absolute dagger to the heart for Daniel Ricciardo. His team didn't manage to serve that 5-second penalty correctly. He's now been handed a 10-second penalty, and that's pretty much his... Oh, no. The front jack touches the car. The mechanic just touches the front wing. And he knew as well. He put his hand to his helmet. Didn't serve that 5-second time penalty correctly. And it's the front left or the front right as the driver's sitting. The front right jack. There's somebody who's just there to hold the front wing. And he grabbed the front wing instinctively, but of course needed to serve 5 seconds without anybody touching the car, which did not happen. And now Daniel Ricciardo has been handed another penalty, this time for 10 seconds. And that's the end of Daniel Ricciardo really being competitive for points, in my opinion, this afternoon. Guys, please like the stream. Yes, let's like the stream. Should we see how many likes we've got so far as we kind of go into this first lull after the pit stops? Have a little look on the second monitor. Let's go to live streams. Oh, no, I've gone on to the wrong thing. Go into the live streams. Currently 154 likes. Let's hit that like button. We can definitely get it up. In the Netherlands, we got 624. That is your target. Verstappen goes wide at turn 7. A little bit of gravel picked up on the rear left tyre of Max Verstappen. Here comes Carlos Sainz then. So Max Verstappen is going to go into the lead of this Grand Prix. Of course, on a much different strategy than everybody else, still running on those hard compound tyres. We'll see where Carlos Sainz shuffles into the order. Oscar Piastri, Lando Norris and Charles Leclerc making their way past the Spaniard. And Carlos Sainz is going to come out ahead of Esteban Ocon. Just about, yes. There is Esteban Ocon. Always going to be close, actually. Nope, just ahead of Esteban Ocon. And ahead of Lewis Hamilton as well. Carlos Sainz remains ahead of Lewis Hamilton in this one. You need Daniel points. Unfortunately, that is all done and dusted. He's got another 10-second penalty. And George Russell is going to be ruining that damage as well, isn't he? All the way down in 10th place now. Has to get past Bottas and Ocon to catch this top 8 once more. Keep an eye on the gap, though, because Lewis Hamilton, 21 seconds behind the leader, Max Verstappen. So Verstappen, at this rate, would still come out behind... Oh, sorry, that's Carlos Sainz. Carlos Sainz, 21. Lewis Hamilton, 22. But with still, Max Verstappen still would come out behind Lewis Hamilton at this point. In fact, he might even come out behind Esteban Ocon. It would be close between where he would come out if Max Verstappen does decide to pit now. Max Verstappen asked to pick up the pace. Can you pick up the pace, please, Max? Here we go. Max Verstappen being unleashed in that Red Bull car. Let's see what kind of pace he's got on these hard compound tyres that have already done 20 laps, remember. Everyone else on hard compound tyres that have not done anywhere near that. It does mean that when Verstappen does swap onto the mediums, he's going to have a lot of fresh rubber to run at these cars, especially with low fuel in the car as well. It's going to be interesting to see what Max Verstappen can do at the end of this race. But at the moment, he would come out a couple of seconds behind Lewis Hamilton as it stands, which is why he's just being given the hurry up by the team. Still 33 laps left to go in this one. Max Verstappen leads. Sergio Perez in second, but neither of those Red Bulls yet to have stopped. Then we've got Oscar Piastri in third place, effectively leading the Grand Prix. Norris fourth, Leclerc fifth, who's just set the fastest lap of the Grand Prix. Carlos Sainz in sixth spot. Max Verstappen, that gap to Lewis Hamilton just being shown, 21.2 seconds, would come out behind the Mercedes car. And here we are on board with Kevin Magnussen. Let's have a little look. There's a collision between Magnussen and Gasly coming up just around towards turn 4. Ooh. And Kevin Magnussen left his brake in way too late, in my opinion. Shunted into the side of Pierre Gasly. And I think that might be Kevin Magnussen also picking up a penalty. And the Haas cars, I thought the Haas cars looked pretty good this weekend. I was backing them to at least get one of them in the points. All gone wrong for them. And Kevin Magnussen falling behind Gasly because of the pit stops. And Kevin Magnussen struggling to get past Gasly as well. Fernando Alonso behind Valtteri Bottas. Much fresher tyres on the Aston Martin. And actually shuffles past Valtteri Bottas very comfortably indeed. Max Verstappen getting the box call. So Max Verstappen realizing that he's losing too much time to the cars behind. Lewis Hamilton has eked out kind of 2 seconds in the last couple of laps on Max Verstappen. But Verstappen will be on a fresher set of medium tyres, you'd imagine, once he comes in. Hard compound tyres just not quite doing the business even in the clear air. So that is going to release Sergio Perez into the lead of this Grand Prix. Although Oscar Piastri is closing in behind at a swift rate of knots. And we've got Lando Norris setting fast laps as well. Charles Leclerc gaining. It's very, very close between those three. Piastri now sets the fastest lap of the race. He goes past Verstappen, Lando Norris also, and Leclerc up into 4th spot too. Sainz and Hamilton will also make their way past Max Verstappen. should get out just in front of Esteban Ocon. Oh, 6.2 seconds stop. He might not. No, Esteban Ocon's. That's a terrible stop from Max Verstappen. A 6.2 seconds stop and another set of hard compound tyres. Lando Norris being confirmed there. He is allowed to race Oscar. Papaya rules. So Lando Norris has been given the go-ahead to close that gap to Piastri by his race engineer. What happened here with Verstappen then? The right rear wouldn't come off. Couldn't get the right rear tyre off the car. That is a real shame for Max Verstappen, but as a McLaren fan, I'm very happy indeed. Max Verstappen, a very poor pit stop. And that is going to really hamper the rest of his race now. Look how far he is adrift. And a punch to the steering wheel as well from Max Verstappen in frustration. So annoyed. Fastest lap from Lando Norris as Sergio Perez then gives the lead back to Oscar Piastri. So we are, as it should be, in the top 8 now. Oh, no, sorry. Esteban Ocon still hasn't pitted. Esteban Ocon is not running 7th fastest of anybody out on track. Sergio Perez might even get ahead of Verstappen, right? Because of this undercut. Or will Perez? No, Perez still just comes out behind. I thought that pit stop might just cost Verstappen. Max Verstappen asking how we do this stint. GP, just get on with it. Hammer down now, Max. Get going is the call from the Red Bull garage. Max Verstappen getting past Esteban Ocon. Esteban Ocon has been just a moving bollard, hasn't he? For a lot of these top drivers as they've come out of the pit lane. Esteban Ocon going for a very different strategy, though. Still on the hard compound tyres is Esteban Ocon. Trying to battle for the points in the Alpine. Here we go. Forget the tyres, Max. Just absolutely rinse those tyres. He's now 7.5 seconds off the back of Lewis Hamilton. Because of that really slow stop, that should have been about 2 seconds, and he shouldn't have had to deal with Esteban Ocon either. Fastest lap response comes from Oscar Piastri. Can Lando Norris do the same? No. Lando Norris 1.7 seconds off the back of his teammate. Charles Leclerc 1.5 behind that. Carlos Sainz has disappeared into the distance. 11 seconds the gap between the podium spots and the Spaniard in 4th. Lewis Hamilton keeping him company just a second behind. Max Verstappen then 7.5 seconds adrift in the Red Bull. Esteban Ocon still holding on to 7th place. Sergio Perez is then in 8th behind his teammate and is now going to get past Esteban Ocon. Does. Sergio Perez back up into 7th, and George Russell actually catching the back of Sergio Perez in the Mercedes. Now that he's got a working front wing, George Russell will get back up into 8th spot fairly soon, you'd imagine. Then Esteban Ocon will pit. Fernando Alonso now running best of the rest in 10th spot, which will become 9th. And Alex Albon just about running in the points, although 5.5 seconds adrift of Fernando Alonso right now. Absolutely insane. Red Bull's downfall should be studied at Harvard. I've been trying to look into it, actually. I've been debating doing a video on what's just gone wrong in these first 2 races for Red Bull and why that might have happened. But it is very weird and very complicated. Like, the Red Bull just looks nothing like itself post-summer break, to be honest. Oscar Piastri, again, fastest lap of the Grand Prix, a 1:23.2. The Australian realizing that Lando Norris has been given the go-ahead to attack and putting in the lap times that he doesn't think his teammate will be able to manage behind him. This is going to get very tight indeed. Red Bull isn't getting a championship till 2029. Drivers' Championship still in the fray. This will put, would it be 30 points? Oscar Piastri 25, Lando Norris 18, Verstappen, Perez. It'd be close. Be close to putting McLaren top of the Constructors' Championship already with 8 races left to go. So that's looking like it's almost guaranteed for them. Lando Norris now loses another couple attempts to his teammate. 2.2 seconds now, the gap. Charles Leclerc just maintaining that level distance. Is Oscar Piastri pushing these tyres a little bit too hard? Or is this the real pace difference? Is Oscar Piastri just that quicker car right now? Another fast lap from Oscar Piastri, 123.1. And I think he's kind of doing, you know what Lando did in Hungary, where Lando just put in fast lap after fast lap after fast lap and was like, you know what, if he wants to overtake me, catch me up. Oscar Piastri returning the favour. Fast lap after fast lap is coming from Piastri on the radio, being told, well, Lando Norris is allowed to attack. Going to have to get within touch and distance to start attacking. What is the chance we could get a Charles Leclerc, Carlos Sainz, Lewis Hamilton podium? To be honest, considering I think Norris will go for an attack on Oscar Piastri at some point, it's not completely out of the realms of possibility that those two could take each other out. We haven't seen a real big, high-profile collision between Piastri and Norris yet that I can remember. This could be it, right? This could be the defining moment in these two drivers' relationship. Oh, and has to give the place back. Gasly deciding to give Ricciardo that position. Gasly really falling away from it at this point. Ricciardo makes his way past the Alpine of Gasly. Piastri is absolutely smashing in. Another fastest lap from Oscar Piastri. Another 2/10 that Lando Norris just cannot handle. It's getting very, very tight indeed. If we could hit that like button, that would be absolutely amazing. Just going to see how many likes we're on at this current moment. Is it going to show me? Maybe. Ooh. There you go. With the fastest lap point, this would put McLaren and Red Bull equal on points going into the next round in a couple of weeks' time. Very, very interesting indeed. Here we go. 327 likes so far on the stream. Let's bump that up, shall we? Let's bump that up. Remember, the Netherlands got 624. That's what we're aiming for. That's what we've got to beat. You could even become the first stream to get 1,000 likes on the channel. Imagine. Imagine the scenes. There are more than 1,000 people in the chat. Just everybody hit that like button. It's completely free. Doesn't take anything. Imagine this victory for Oscar Piastri or Lando Norris becoming the first 1,000 liked stream on the channel. That would be history. And if you're new, hit that subscribe button as well. We are live for every single qualifying and race throughout the entire season. Still 8 races left to go in this one. Lando Norris puts in a fast lap of his own then. 2.1 seconds the gap to Piastri. 25 laps left to go. It's still not over and done with. There's still some toing and froing to be done. And here comes Daniel Ricciardo on an absolute charge since giving that 10-second penalty. He's back up into 13th spot. But he is now 4.5 seconds adrift of Magnussen and still has that 10-second penalty to deal with as well. Just have a look at those investigations. You see Daniel Ricciardo, that 5-second penalty, then picked up an additional 10-second penalty. Nico Hülkenberg with a 10-second penalty and Magnussen with a 10-second penalty as well. Here we go then. George Russell, just having a little look at his onboard because he is catching up to the back of Sergio Perez. He's within a second of the Red Bull. But George Russell, 12-lap older hard compound tyres on the Mercedes. George Russell pitting a lot earlier than the rest due to that front wing damage. And now trying to do something spectacular. I mean, it would do a massive favour to Lando Norris if George Russell could put himself back ahead of Max Verstappen, where he should really be, had he not picked up that damage with the collision with Oscar Piastri at the beginning of the Grand Prix. Lando Alonso in 9th place, still best of the rest. Esteban Ocon in 10th spot, but still yet to have pitted on those hard compound tyres. And Esteban Ocon, is he just going for like a zero stop strategy? Lando Norris, front left, looks pretty bad, says Lando Norris, not very happy on these tyres at all. And actually falling adrift of his teammate once again. 3 seconds now the gap. Was there a little mistake from Lando Norris in there somewhere? Or is that just the pace? He's falling away, and Oscar Piastri continuing to put in fast laps. A monstrous 122.9 from Piastri there. Can Lando Norris submit anything close to that? No, a 123.6. Lando Norris falling away from his teammate pretty substantially now. Leclerc on the radio. Here we go then. Leclerc now getting told that he can go for it. And George Russell having a go at Sergio Perez. Push to the inside of turn 2. And Russell comes out of turn 2 ahead, but is going to give that place back to Sergio Perez, I think. And then have a go down towards turn 4 instead as well. George Russell peels in underneath the rear wing of Sergio Perez. They're going to go side by side down towards turn 4 once more. And George Russell not able to get past this time around. Oh my goodness me. Lando Norris has made a mistake again. And Charles Leclerc is now going to be within touching distance. Let me show you the race pace telemetry of it, because it's just getting insane. So here you can see Oscar Piastri just filing away from Lando Norris. Falling. Lando Norris. But Charles Leclerc now being given the go-ahead to run at it. And Charles Leclerc is going to have a go at Lando Norris within the next couple of laps, because he is looking very, very swift indeed. And now is within DRS range as well. Lando Norris now nearly 5 seconds adrift of the lead. Oscar Piastri looking dominant here in Monza. And it was that mistake from Lando Norris through that second sector. He lost 1.5 seconds to Charles Leclerc. Did Lando Norris really struggling with that front left tyre? Here's the replay of it. I'll talk you through it. Lando Norris coming up towards turn 4, 5. And no, just goes completely. Just doesn't get through turn 4 at all. Has to use the escape road through to turn 5. Lucky to not lose the place to Charles Leclerc, honestly. Lando Norris backing out of even attempting turn 4. Sergio Perez didn't leave a lot of room for George Russell there, but George Russell will pounce back at him. Perez on the radio. He gives you the position and then he races you. Well, he's allowed to do that, Sergio. You are back ahead. George Russell, nothing really wrong with that, in my opinion. Sergio Perez just having a little complaint. Lando Norris in. Lando Norris really struggling on those hard compound tyres and has had enough of them. Into the pits comes Lando Norris. Another set of hards. I suppose it's just a little bit too long to go for the mediums. A 3.3 second stop is also not what the doctor ordered for Lando Norris. And Lando Norris is going to come out right in and amongst it. Max Verstappen makes his way past. Needs to get ahead of Sergio Perez, really, because he doesn't want to be in this fight with Perez and Russell. Isn't in the fight with Perez and Russell, luckily. So Lando Norris then, 5 seconds the gap to his teammate, needs to put in some absolutely ridiculous likes. I'm just reading the laps. Needs to put in some ridiculous laps. But we are close to 500 likes, so make sure, as Michael said, you hit that like button. He actually has one weakness, dirty air. Yeah, he's absolutely flying in the clean air, isn't he? It's ridiculous how many just qualifying level laps he's putting in. Obviously, still heavy on fuel, still on the hard compound tyre, not the soft. So there's the difference. But Piastri just chunking away time. from his teammate, and then Lando Norris also with the mistake as well. Oscar Piastri, is he going to cover off his teammate? Lando Norris on the radio. Doesn't know why he's killing his front left so much. Just really struggling to keep that front left in working order. Has released Charles Leclerc, though. Charles Leclerc in second position. Does make you wonder now. 20 laps left to go. Oscar Piastri might just hold on here and stick to this hard compound tyre. Doesn't need to go for a second stop if he doesn't want to, does Oscar Piastri. He's got so much of a lead over the rest of the field. If Oscar Piastri were to pit, he would come out in front of Max Verstappen. Here comes George Russell into the pits then. An expected second stop for the Mercedes car after a very early first stop. Oh, and it's a slow stop from Russell. A 4.2 second stop from Russell. They're trying to do the undercut on Sergio Perez. Whether that will work or not, we'll have to wait and see with that slow stop. Where's George Russell going to come out then? There's the RB of Daniel Ricciardo, and George Russell's going to come out behind it in 12th spot. Not a lot of clean air in front of George Russell either to put in those lap times that he was putting in earlier on. Little look at Colapinto though. Colapinto still ahead of Lance Stroll at this point in the Grand Prix. Running in 13th spot. Just ahead of Lance Stroll and battling with the Canadian. But Colapinto still having the better of it right now in 13th spot. A good run from the rookie so far. George Russell ahead. Daniel Ricciardo also ahead, and don't think has served that 10-second penalty either. So Colapinto will probably gain the position on Daniel Ricciardo as well. And that puts him right behind his teammate. Have to hand it to Colapinto. He is right behind Alex Albon on the road right now as it stands. Of course, Daniel Ricciardo, had he not had that 10-second penalty, would be right in this mix, but still has 10 seconds to give over. Kevin Magnussen goes super deep in his battle with Alex Albon, and Alex Albon gives the position back to Magnussen. Albon running over that little bit of gravel at the inside of turn 1. George Russell has that rear right. Everyone has the rear right for some reason today. The rear right of all the cars just slower than everything else. And Oscar Piastri, again, just putting in some insane lap times now. 1:23.4. Lando Norris, a 1:22.8. But Norris, with a lot of cars in front of him, Verstappen is not going to pit anytime soon in front of Lando Norris. Hamilton, Sainz, and Leclerc may. Yeah, Alex Albon being reminded that Kevin Magnussen does have that 10-second penalty. Sergio Perez is going to cover off George Russell. Box from Sergio Perez then. Just behind Lando Norris there. Is he going to peel into the pits? Yes, he does indeed. The Mexican trying to get back ahead of George Russell. See if George Russell has been able to undercut Sergio Perez effectively there. And good pit stop from Sergio Perez, a 2.3-second stop. So to run you through the order, Oscar Piastri leading, Charles Leclerc second, Carlos Sainz in third spot. Currently 2 Ferraris in the podium scoring places as it stands. Lewis Hamilton is in 4th spot, soon to be Ferrari. Then we've got Verstappen in 5th, Lando Norris in 6th. Kevin Magnussen is now up into 7th spot with Fernando Alonso coming into the pits in his Aston Martin. Alex Albon in 8th spot is ahead of Sergio Perez. Sergio Perez did manage to get out of the pits ahead of George Russell, though. George Russell down into 10th. Daniel Ricciardo 11th, but with a 10-second penalty. Colapinto is up into 12th spot. Colapinto as well, only 4.5 seconds behind Ricciardo, so will gain that position if he can stay within that touching distance. Imagine Colapinto finishing 11th already in Formula 1 would be insane from the Argentine. Lance Stroll in 13th, Fernando Alonso 14th, although Fernando Alonso has done his second stop, so you'd imagine the Spaniard will make some moves back towards those point-scoring places. Esteban Ocon in 15th, Zhou Guanyu 16th, then we've got Pierre Gasly 17th, Valtteri Bottas in 18th, and Nico Hülkenberg's race kind of fell apart on lap 1, unfortunately, for Nico Hülkenberg, all the way down in 19th after starting in the point scoring places. And Max Verstappen has been given the go-ahead to defend heavily against Lando Norris. Lando Norris putting in some very, very quick lap times. Max Verstappen not doing too badly either in 5th spot. Sergio Perez trying to look up the inside of Alex Albon. The Mexican going for the move, and Alex Albon has to yield. Albon once again down that escape road, and Alex Albon then loses out not only to Perez, but also to Russell as well. It does make you wonder if Alex Albon needs to swap those tyres sooner rather than later. Oscar Piastri can pit whenever he likes, to be honest. 5.6 seconds the gap to Charles Leclerc, 10 seconds to Carlos Sainz. Got more than enough of a gap to pit whenever he fancies. And Oscar Piastri on the radio. Oscar Piastri asking, is there a chance we can one stop? Absolutely not, says Oscar Piastri. Wants to go for the 2-stop strategy. Lando Norris and Max Verstappen move ahead of Hamilton as Hamilton peels off into the pits then. Oscar Piastri still leading by more than 5 seconds to Leclerc. Carlos Sainz in 3rd. Lando Norris now within DRS range of Verstappen. We've seen these two come to blows in Austria. And Lando Norris will be thinking back to that and thinking very carefully about where he's going to go for the overtaking opportunity, as George Russell is on Sergio Perez. Perez tries to close the gap. George Russell, I don't think, is going to make turn 2. Does just about. And George Russell, that is a very, very deep move and gets in. Sergio Perez, very, very naughty indeed. And it's not over yet. They're going to go side by side through turn 3, down towards turn 4. Russell going to get the position this time? Yes. Through turn 5. And Russell has the position. Sergio Perez right underneath, though. Oscar Piastri, there you go, is into the pits. Oh, another slow stop. Might have overrun a little bit there. Oscar Piastri just looked really slow once again, and everybody is just having slow pit stops. To be fair, if everybody's having slow pit stops, then nobody's having slow pit stops. Is kind of how it works. But Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri still separated by a car once again. Last time it was Albon. This time it's Verstappen has separated the two McLarens after their pit stops. And Lando Norris now having to overtake Max Verstappen. Was within DRS range, couldn't get it done last lap. Running out of time is Lando Norris, 15 laps left to go. And Oscar Piastri, a deserved front runner right now. Oscar Piastri has just been untouchable in terms of pace out front compared to everybody else in terms of those lap times that he's been able to put in on the tyres that he's been on at the time. Charles Leclerc is now leading then in 1st place for Ferrari. Will he go to the end of the Grand Prix, you think, Charles Leclerc? Maybe Carlos Sainz 4 laps later. Of course, is now leading by 10 seconds to Sainz, 18 seconds to Piastri. Maybe Ferrari just thinking about going for the 1-stop. Almost doing what Mercedes did in Belgium and just playing the strategy that nobody else did. Lando Norris then under the rear wing of Max Verstappen. DRS open for Lando Norris. Max Verstappen going to the inside. Lando Norris to the outside. Is he going to be able to do it? Verstappen covers the apex of turn 1 and turn 2. And Verstappen holds on to that place from Norris. Now Norris frustrated once more behind Verstappen because Verstappen gets a really good drive off turn 2 through turn 3. He's going to be gaining and gaining, but isn't going to be able to make a move down towards turn 4 this time around. It's just giving Oscar Piastri an opportune moment to elongate his lead once more. Oscar Piastri now 3 seconds ahead of Max Verstappen, and every lap that Lando Norris is stuck behind Verstappen is a lap that Piastri is gaining on his teammate. Oscar Piastri now 6 seconds off Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc. In fact, how quickly is Oscar Piastri gaining on them? Piastri isn't gaining ridiculously fast, you know. Closing in though is Oscar Piastri. And if the Ferraris don't pit, gonna give Oscar Piastri a little bit of a challenge to get past both of them towards the end. Here goes Max Verstappen versus Lando Norris again. Lando Norris getting the DRS, gets ahead of Max Verstappen. Verstappen tries to come back at him at turn 1, but Lando Norris finally gets that job done. Oscar Piastri 4 seconds ahead now, though. Lando Norris lost a good second or two behind Max Verstappen there. Can Ferrari make it to the end of this Grand Prix? Are we going to see Lando Norris only finish 1 place ahead of Max Verstappen? That wouldn't be enough to average those 8 points that he needs per race. Would make the challenge even harder for Lando Norris. Verstappen, 18 laps done on those hard tyres. Hamilton closing in behind. Needs to close in at about a second a lap, though, does Hamilton. Did last lap, 124.3. George Russell, a 122.8, but Russell's got to get past Magnussen. Verstappen, box. Verstappen is not going to try and go to the end on these hard tyres. I think Verstappen actually just staying out to cause Lando Norris a headache. Let's see then. 11 laps to go. Charles Leclerc is 15 seconds ahead of Oscar Piastri. You know what? I think Ferrari might have done something a little bit special here, but those tyres might fall off a cliff. Ferrari might have this if those tyres hold on longer than we were expecting them to. Carlos Sainz, of course, is going to be able to defend a little bit from Oscar Piastri. Whether he's going to have the tyre advantage, though, because Oscar Piastri is absolutely flying. A 122 dead from Oscar Piastri. And Lando Norris, 4.6 seconds adrift. Piastri is absolutely flying in the clean air, isn't he? 4 seconds the gap between Sainz and Piastri. Oof. Lando Norris being told on the radio that the Ferraris are going to try for a one-stop strategy. Charles Leclerc's already done 26 laps on those hard compound tyres. It is going to go down to the wire here. Oscar Piastri, 1.6 seconds quicker than Leclerc on the last lap, but does need to get within striking distance of Leclerc before the end. 14 seconds still the gap. Still got a couple of laps before he's going to catch the back of Carlos Sainz at this rate. He's 3.5 seconds adrift of the Spaniard in third spot. Max Verstappen pitted, and now Max Verstappen on a set of medium tyres as well. But he is 13 seconds adrift of Lewis Hamilton. Not expecting that to happen anytime soon. Verstappen in 6th spot. Kevin Magnussen is in 8th place. He's maybe going to try and go to the end as well. Sergio Perez, though, gaining on the Haas at this point. Alex Albon hasn't pitted for a second time either. Neither's Daniel Ricciardo, actually. Colapinto also hasn't pitted yet, but is now under pressure from Fernando Alonso. There's a few different stories to play out. It's going to go down to the absolute end of this Grand Prix. Could do with a safety car, really. If you're a McLaren fan, that would close the gap to Charles Leclerc a little bit quicker, wouldn't it? 10 laps are left to go in this one. 12.8 seconds the gap. And Piastri is now struggling a little bit because he is in the wake of Carlos Sainz. Charles Leclerc, the graining on that front left tyre. And Oscar Piastri now also having to deal with back markers. Zhou Guanyu having to be dispatched by Oscar Piastri, who's trying to get back into the lead of this race. 1.5 seconds the gap to Carlos Sainz. 10 laps left. Goodness me. Should we have a little look at the race trace? Oh my goodness me. Look at that from Oscar Piastri. Gaining ridiculously on the leader as it stands, but needs to do that every single lap for the rest of the Grand Prix. The spike of orange in the bottom right-hand corner there. Goodness gracious me. Oscar Piastri now has DRS. Sergio Perez has managed to get back past Kevin Magnussen. So Magnussen running in 9th spot, but with a 10-second penalty, remember, Kevin Magnussen. So Alex Albon is still best of the rest as it stands right now. I think Kevin Magnussen might just be far enough ahead of Daniel Ricciardo. Although Daniel Ricciardo's got a 10-second penalty as well, hasn't he? So Magnussen and Ricciardo with 10-second penalties. Hoping for a miracle to get some points there. Carlos Sainz and Oscar Piastri both make their way past a back marker. Carlos Sainz gets a bit of DRS because they're making their way past Pierre Gasly. Carlos Sainz on the radio saying the front left is nearly gone, but there's no point in pitting now with 9 laps left to go. The damage has already been done. And if Carlos Sainz is going to go for it, he's got to go for it. Oscar Piastri trying to take the lead of this Grand Prix from Charles Leclerc once more, but it's being stopped effectively by Carlos Sainz. Charles Leclerc has actually been quicker last lap than Oscar Piastri because Piastri's being held up by Carlos Sainz. The Ferrari's doing the team game here. Carlos Sainz trying to be that barrier in front of Piastri. Piastri going for it down towards turn 8 and does. Oscar Piastri now moves in front of Carlos Sainz. And now 11.7 seconds is the gap with 9 laps left to go. Soon to be 8 laps as Charles Leclerc is about to cross the start-finish line. You can see Charles Leclerc just crossing the start-finish line there. Still 2 back markers in the way as well. There's Lance Stroll and Esteban Ocon to deal with in front. Charles Leclerc also catching the back of Colapinto at this moment in time. Fernando Alonso, though, looking pretty good on his fresher hard compound tyres, trying to gain on Daniel Ricciardo. Ricciardo's going to put up a stern test, though, for the Spaniard in that battle for the point scoring places. Of course, Fernando Alonso was running best of the rest. That's now Alex Albon at this point. Alex Albon, I don't think is going to be caught by Fernando Alonso. So Albon looking like a point scoring place is definitely on the cards. And signed, sealed, delivered to the Williams garage. A 9th place finish. In very lovely indeed, if you're a Williams fan. Charles Leclerc, 11.3 seconds the lead. Let's have a look then as they come round this lap. Piastri, I don't think has got the pace, you know. That gap is not coming down as swiftly as I would expected it to be. Piastri, 11 seconds the gap still. Lando Norris finally gets past some of the back markers. Lando Norris still looking to get past Carlos Sainz at this point in the race. Carlos Sainz doing his best to hold on as much as he possibly can. Oscar Piastri, 10.5 seconds the gap. Charles Leclerc has just gone past the start-finish line. What was the difference in lap time? A 23.5 from Leclerc, a 22.5 from Piastri. So it was only a second. That is not going to be enough to catch him in the 7 laps that are left. If Oscar Piastri does want to get to the top step of the podium, Charles Leclerc looking amazingly good right now for a victory in the Ferrari, as long as he can hold on to these hard compound tyres. We don't know the limit of these hard compound tyres here at Monza. Of course, the track resurfaced, so it's a little bit kinder to the tyres, and maybe Ferrari just using that to their advantage here this weekend. Leclerc on the radio. Brake balance +1. And Charles Leclerc saying, look, leave me alone with this. Leclerc wanting just 7 laps of peace and serenity whilst he tries to focus on getting the job done. Charles Leclerc worried now. I think Oscar Piastri in the clean air. This lap looking a lot better from Piastri. Still 2 back markers there, though. Ocon and Stroll to deal with, neither of which are going to come into pit anytime soon. Here we go then. Lando Norris is also under the rear wing of Carlos Sainz. Need to keep an eye on that battle as well. They're coming around the final corner towards the start-finish straight. The 1.4 seconds gained from Piastri on that last lap. Here comes Lando Norris for the final podium spot. And there is Lando Norris taking that third place position from Carlos Sainz. Lando Norris 4.3 seconds adrift from his teammate though. And 13 seconds adrift from Charles Leclerc. Lando Norris looking like third place is going to be the best that he can do right now. Gone from first to third. And again, it was that first lap from Lando Norris where it all fell apart. Wasn't his fault this time around, just the slipstream from Oscar Piastri. Managing to get round turn 3, down in towards turn 4, then lost the position to Charles Leclerc as well because he got a little bit out of shape around that corner. And Leclerc looking very, very tidy indeed, at least for a second place finish. If he can keep Oscar Piastri behind, though, he could take the victory here in front of the Tifosi in a Ferrari car. Come on, Oscar, please. 8.5 seconds the gap, 6 laps left to go. Is going to go right down to the final lap. 5 laps is left for Charles Leclerc as he goes past the start-finish line. Piastri now coming down this start-finish straight. Lance Stroll and Esteban Ocon, unfortunately, in front of him. And it is 8.2 seconds the gap. Piastri only 8 tenths quicker than Leclerc on that one. Can people in the background please be awake? Verstappen on the radio. Not very happy at all with something on the radio. George Russell also maybe a little bit worried. Verstappen possibly. I don't know, actually. He's on the fresher medium compound tyre. Russell going a little bit quicker, but not enough to close a 4-second gap. So it's looking like Max Verstappen's going to finish in 6th. Hamilton's going to finish in 5th. The top 8, as we'd expect. As I said, a 10-second penalty for Kevin Magnussen at this point would put him in 10th place. Alex Albon needs to keep himself within touch and distance. Fernando Alonso needs to close in just a little bit, actually. And Fernando Alonso will be in the points. Charles Leclerc getting a scream from the crowd every time he goes past the start-finish line, pushing him forwards. At this point, Max Verstappen would gain 9 points. Lando Norris 15. That would only be a 6-point swing in favour of Lando Norris as it stands because of George Russell kind of falling away and falling behind Max Verstappen. And, of course, Lando Norris moving down a couple of positions as well. 45 laps. George Russell did this in Belgium, and I feel like nobody realised that maybe this is the strategy. It's 4 laps left to go, and Oscar Piastri is not gaining 2 seconds a lap. Ferrari have absolutely nailed this in terms of doing that one-stop strategy. They've snuck underneath everybody else's nose, holding onto these hard compound tyres. Charles Leclerc now, still the interval, only 7 seconds, and he's about to cross the start-finish line again. 1 corner between Leclerc and 3 laps left. Charles Leclerc in a Ferrari doing the business. At this point as well, McLaren will gain 20 points on Red Bull in the Constructors. Red Bull will still be leading by 10 points. But then Ferrari will also only be 40 points off Red Bull Racing as well. So the Constructors' Championship wide open for those 3 teams at this moment in time. 7 seconds to go, 3 laps left. Oscar Piastri still needs to deal with the back markers as well. Piastri is... Oh, no, sorry. Lando Norris is behind the back markers. Piastri has made it past the back markers. 6.7 seconds is the gap. I don't know. I don't think he's going to be able to do it here. I think Ferrari have absolutely smashed this. Looking at Oscar Piastri's lap times, he's lost a little bit, behind those back markers that he had to get past. That orange line just doesn't look like it's going to collide with the red one within the next 2 laps. And Charles Leclerc is going to celebrate an incredible victory here in front of the Tifosi. His 7th victory in Formula One. 7 victories for Monaco, 7 victories for Leclerc. Just 2 laps away. Leclerc now coming round turn 11. Piastri following round 6 seconds adrift. Ferrari have just done the business with Charles Leclerc. Leclerc has to be rewarded for making that move on Lando Norris early in the race. He's done really well, Leclerc, through both of these stints to keep the pace of that Ferrari as high as it needs to be. Ferrari are now looking like they're going to take the victory from McLaren. A frustrating afternoon once again for Lando Norris, who's running around only in 3rd spot. Leclerc, though, just being almost pushed by the Tifosi every lap. There is a huge cheer from the Ferrari fans in the stands. An Italian car at the Italian Grand Prix. Ferrari is not just a race team to them. It is a religion, and you can see the joy of the Ferrari fans every single time Charles Leclerc goes past. He is given that massive push by the Ferrari team. He is going to go into the final lap, still in the lead, and by 4 seconds. It's done and dusted. Ferrari have done it. Ferrari just need one more lap from Leclerc. Alessandro Del Piero, of course, the Italian football player, is going to wave that checkered flag. The final lap has started. Charles Leclerc through turn 1 and turn 2. Colapinto ahead of him as well to give him a little bit of DRS. Don't mind if he does. 3.9 seconds the gap to Piastri. It's done. All Leclerc needs is a fairly solid lap here. Everything done and dusted. Oscar Piastri's putting in insane lap times. A 121.9 from Piastri. But it's not going to be enough to catch the Monegasque here at Ferrari's home Grand Prix. Holding on is Charles Leclerc. Down towards turn 8 for one final time. The 3rd sector is the only thing between Charles Leclerc's 2nd win in Monza for Ferrari. He makes it through 8, 9, and 10 comfortably. Colapinto ahead of him through turn 11 they go. Here comes Charles Leclerc. Round turn 11, the 2nd win in Monza for Ferrari, for Charles Leclerc. And it's going to be an easy and comfortable one in the end. Charles Leclerc takes victory ahead of Oscar Piastri here in Monza. Lando Norris is going to come home in 3rd place with the fastest lap as well. That'll elongate the lead. The jump in points to 7 points for this time around for Lando Norris if Max Verstappen stays 6th. Lewis Hamilton is likely to come home in 5th place, does indeed. Max Verstappen, our championship leader, comes home in 6th place. And Lando Norris is going to look at the 3 points lost to his teammate, the 10 points lost that he could have had if he won. And again, look at what could have been. But it is a Monza victory for Ferrari. Forza Ferrari once more in Italy for the 3rd time in what feels like forever. What has it been, like 15 years? We've seen Fernando Alonso on the top step of the podium. We've now seen Charles Leclerc on the top step of the podium here in Monza twice for Ferrari. An insane race in terms of strategy for all of the cars. Kevin Magnussen hit with that 10-second penalty at the end. Just about keeps him in the points. Look at that. Kevin Magnussen has nabbed a point for Haas. I thought he dropped behind Fernando Alonso, but he did not. Has gained that position. Colapinto as well is going to jump up into 12th place on debut, with Daniel Ricciardo taking that 10-second penalty as well. Fernando Alonso agonizingly outside of the points in 11th. Esteban Ocon will get 14th. Pierre Gasly 15th. Bottas 16th. Hulkenberg 17th. Zhou Guanyu 18th. And Lance Stroll in 19th place. Yuki Tsunoda, the one retirement from the Grand Prix. Before the stream ends, everybody hit that like button. That'd be absolutely amazing if you could. Shall we have a double check on what likes we are on at the moment? Oh, it hasn't uploaded for me. Oh, it hasn't changed for me. Still saying 300 and something, but we're definitely higher than that, I'm sure, at this point in the Grand Prix. Also, if you could hit that subscribe button as well, we're just a couple of thousand away from the 100,000 subscriber goal. We're aiming to get it done before the end of the season. With your guys' help, we can definitely get that done. So hit the subscribe button. We'll be back once again live in a couple of weeks' time because there is a little gap after Monaco, Azerbaijan to come. Then, of course, Singapore as well we'll be back for. And the rest of the 8 races in the Grand Prix that are set, for this Grand Prix schedule we have. Oscar Piastri goes a little bit deep and actually hits into the second place podium sign. Lando Norris in third. Took that fast lap at the end, though. Thank you guys so much. I'm going to disappear. I'm going to watch the podium ceremony. And very well done to all of the Ferrari fans. Absolutely gutted for McLaren, but it is what it is. I'll be back a little bit later on with all of my analysis from the Grand Prix, and I'll see you then.